The movie begins in an American town. In that community, there are two friends named Darren and Steve. They're both students at the same school. Darren is a smart kid. His parents are overjoyed to see him. They believe their son has a brighter future because of it. Darren's parents are unenthusiastic about his friendship with Steve. Because of Steve, Darren is unable to attend school one day. The class instructor informs Darren's parents about this. Darren's parents are furious. They issue a warning to Darren that if they become irritated by him, he must immediately cease contact with Steve at all costs. After that, out of respect for his parents, Darren cuts ties with Steve. Steve meets Darren the next day. However, Darren informs Steve that his parents desire to disconnect their friendship. "But I don't want it and you're my closest friend," says Darren. "We'll keep our friendship a secret," according to Darren. However, Steve disagrees with this proposal. There's an argument between the two regarding this. At that time, a strange car was coming to a halt in front of us. A peculiar poster pops out of the vehicle. There's a weird circus going on in town. Darren and Steve will be ecstatic when they see this advertisement. The following day, Darren will not pay attention to his school's lesson and will continue to have the poster in his textbook. The teacher, on the other hand, sees this and brings the poster near Darren. He also warns every student in class not to attend that circus. But that night, Darren and Steve go to the circus without telling anyone, and they go there. When purchasing tickets, a tiny form sinks its teeth into Steve's hand. They then visit the circus together. Mr. Toll sees both of them as soon as they walk through the door, and he invites them in. Mr. Tolo then brings several odd individuals to the stage. The Wolf Man comes out on stage first. After that, another lady arrives on stage. Any body part of hers might be regenerated. Snake Boy then appears and performs on the stage. Following these performances, Madam Crook takes the stage. She has the ability to see into the future. She arrives on Darren right away. She caresses Darren's face and looks into his destiny. She acquires a beard and mustache in addition to her current look. Then she shaves off her hair and visits Cripsily. Cripsily is told by Krusek that it's not wise to be here, since my thoughts will bring me bad news. Cripsily, on the other hand, pays no attention to her words. Cripsily then appears on stage with his spider. Steve thinks he's a vampire after seeing Cripsily. He tells Darren the same thing, but Darren does not agree with him. The spider, on the other hand, falls upon Darren. Darren is captivated by the spider and finds it quite appealing. Then Cripsily shows up and seizes his spider. At the same time, Cripsily informs them that vampires do not exist in the world and their notion is incorrect. When the class teacher arrives with the cops, Cripsily is forced to cease his performance. When Darren and Steve see their teacher approaching, they flee the scene. Darren goes to Cripsily's room. He notices a spider there. When someone enters the room, Darren takes the spider and hides in the closet. Meanwhile, Cripsily comes into the room with another guy. They talk about the vampire war. The guy informs Cripsily that Mr. Tenney wants to kill us with vampannies. Steve appears when they chat like this. Cripsily sees Steve and urges him to leave, but he insists that his blood should be changed into a vampire as well. Cripsily disagrees and states that his blood can't be turned into a good vampire because it is high in evil power. Steve gets angry when he hears this. Steve tells Cripsily that he'll get his retribution. Steve is thrown out of the room, and Cripsily becomes enraged. There will be no spider. Cripsily searches for it after that. Spider is taken by Darren and emerges from the area. When Darren gets out of there, he sees the vehicle. The car is a magical vehicle that appeared in the film's beginning and distributed posters. Mr. Tenney tells Darren to come inside, and Mr. Tenney takes his hair one for study. Darren is then dropped off at his house. The next day, he brings the spider to school with him. Steve knows that Darren has a spider, but because of this, Steve accidentally throws down the spider cage and the spider comes out of it. Darren uses his flute to try and control the spider. However, he drops it, and Steve attempts to kill the spider. The spider sews him up in this order. As a result of this, Steve loses consciousness. Darren goes to Cripsily and asks Antidote. Cripsily gets mad at Darren because he took his spider, but then, Cripsily finds out that Mr. Tenney cut off Darren's hair for research, so then, Cripsily agrees to help Darren. According to Cripsily, there is a requirement that you must fulfill. He wants Darren to assist him. He also wishes for Darren to become a half-vampire. That's when Cripsily mixes their blood together. Cripsily added that Darren should forget about his family. Cripsily and Darren come to the hospital where Steve is. They give him an antidote to make him better. Cripsily turns Darren's neck, but he falls from the building and his family does a last rites for him because they think he is dead. But really, he was just unconscious. Cripsily uses his power to show that Darren can't breathe and his heart isn't beating. But in fact, he was just unconscious too. Steve is now at the Darren last rites. Steve, on the other hand, attempts to get Darren up by looking at the burned scars on his fingertips. Those present stop Steve, however, but when he saw the marks on Darren's hand, Steve realized that he had become a vampire. Cripsily then digs up Darren's grave and pulls him out. At the same time, Mullo, the leader of the Vampanys, arrives there to attack them. Mullo tries to take Darren away from the area. Regardless, Darren is saved by Cripsily. Then the two go to a circus place together. Darren and Evra become roommates. Then Steve also goes up to the school building to die because he can't bear Darren's death. At the same time, Mr. Tenney comes there. Mr. Tenney tells Steve that Darren is not dead, but has instead become a vampire. Mr. Tenney said that Darren took Steve's dream away and that Cripsily made Darren into a vampire, not Steve. Steve is also angry, but Mr. Tenney invited Steve to join their group and offered him the chance to be a vampire too. Darren, on the other hand, is learning to control his abilities in the proper manner. However, Steve recalls him as well. Darren phones Steve, but Cripsily arrives at the same time and snatches away Darren's phone before breaking it. Cripsily warns Darren that he should be extremely cautious. Mr. Tenney's car drives up while they are talking like this. When he sees it, Cripsily asks Darren to go inside. Mr. Tenney asks Cripsily to send Darren with him, but Cripsily does not agree and tells him that he can't tell him what to do, and then Mr. Tenney leaves the scene and warns them that if they don't listen, they will be sorry. Steve is now a member of the Vampanys gang. Steve becomes a Vampanys after being turned into Mullo, the leader of the Vampanys. After becoming a Vampanys, Steve obtains a lot of strength. Cripsily is with Darren and is teaching him to be like him. During their training, Cripsily explains his backstory to Darren. Cripsily informs Darren that there have been two categories of vampires for a long time. Vampires are permitted to drink only a little blood, whereas Vampanys will murder people and consume their blood. Additionally, since the last 100 years, vampires and Vampanys haven't had any fights, but Mr. Tenney keeps on creating conflicts between them. Cripsily then tells Darren to make a man unconscious and drink his blood, but Darren does not agree to drink blood. Cripsily tells that if he does not drink blood, he will die, and he leaves angrily. On the same day, the Vampanys attack the place where the Cripsily team is located. This makes Cripsily hide Darren in a secret place. The Vampanys cannot find Darren. This leads to angry attacks on the Cripsily team. Also, Rebecca is taken by the Vampanys. Darren and Rebecca are good friends. Darren returns to the circus place and learns what happened there, including that Vampanys has also gone to his house for him again. Darren sets out to save Rebecca. He also sends a message to Cripsily with Spider. Darren then reaches his house, but the Vampanys kidnap Darren's family, leave a message there for Darren with information about where to come next. The Spider tells Cripsily a message from Darren. When he hears it, he leaves to save Darren, but Darren reaches the place before Cripsily does. Mullo and Steve surround Darren as he gets there. They tell Darren that they will leave only one of the Darren family members and choose who they are, but Darren gets very angry with Steve. Darren attacks Steve, but he is weak because he does not drink blood. Steve scolds him, and at exactly the same time, Cripsily comes there. Mullo and Cripsily are fighting. Rebecca cuts her thread, then she takes Darren to a safe place. Rebecca says to Darren that he should drink some blood, but Darren does not agree with this idea because he does not want any power. But Rebecca tells him that it will be alright, and so Darren drinks the blood, which gives him power. Darren saw Steve attacking Cripsily and then he attacked Steve. Then Cripsily killed Mullo. At exactly the same time, Mr. Tenney comes there. Mr. Tenney says that there will be war between the Vampanys and vampires as Mullo is killed. But Darren told Steve that the other Vampanys and vampires do not need to know, but Steve doesn't care. Darren is going to attack him, but Mr. Tenney blocks Darren. Mr. Tenney makes Steve the leader of the Vampanys. Cripsily and Darren drop Darren's family off at their house and make them forget everything with their powers. Then Cripsily, Darren, and Rebecca go to their circus team together. This is the end of this film. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.